In a few weeks, I'll be living on a cruise ship for 3 months, which sounds glamorous until you see the admin. In this video, I'll show you how I get ready. Rehearsals, set lists, paperwork, packing, learning an unreasonably large amount of songs, and everything else required to step on board. Right, where was I? Sweet Karen. What was it? Oh yeah, the line. I'm a guitarist and singer, and I work on cruise ships.
Coming up as stories in the programme.
I'm a solo guitarist and vocalist on cruise ships. During a typical contract, I'll perform 4 or 5 sets a night, each around 45 minutes long, and that's usually 7 nights a week. Sometimes I'm playing in the same venue all evening, and sometimes I'm moving around the ship between sets and performing for people of all ages and nationalities. The shows are made up entirely of cover songs, popular music from across different genres and decades. A normal cruise contract can last 6 to 8 months, sometimes even a full year. This next one, though, is slightly shorter. I'll be joining MSC Virtuosa for 3 months from late April until late July. But before you even step on board, though, there's quite a lot you have to sort out. Of course, to get a contract as a cruise ship musician, the first thing you need is talent. But before you even get anywhere near a stage, there's also quite a bit of paperwork involved. There are several documents that need to be completed and sent to your agent before you're even allowed to step on the ship. So, let's go through some of the main ones, starting with the medical exam. Anyone working on a cruise ship has to pass a specific seafarer's medical exam. Basically, it confirms that you're fit and able to work at sea for several months at a time. Right, let's go get my medical. Just on the way to my medical exam. I say exam, I'm not training to be a surgeon or anything, but, you know, medical checkup. I passed! Somehow they didn't flag up my 5 extra nipples and my tail, but you know, not complaining. The next thing you're required to provide is proof that you're up to date with your vaccinations. So we're talking the usual ones: measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, and occasionally a few extras, if you're visiting some more slightly exotic locations. Next up is a criminal background check. This confirms whether you have any previous convictions, pending charges, or any other legal issues. Here in England, the document you need to apply for and pay for is called an Acro Police Certificate. Officially not a criminal. Perhaps the most important requirement for anyone working on a cruise ship is called STCW training. It's essentially a maritime safety course that all crew members have to complete before they can work at sea. The training usually takes around 5 to 7 days and can either be done in person at a specialist training centre or, as in my case, mostly online. STCW. The course itself covers things like basic fire prevention and firefighting, elementary first aid, general shipboard safety, and security awareness. Finally, all crew members need to have something called a seaman's book. That's seaman's book, by the way. No, it is actually a real thing. A seaman's book is essentially a document that records your employment history and your certifications at sea. Every time you complete a contract, it gets logged in there. In my case, my agency arranged this for me, but with some cruise lines you have to actually apply for one yourself. Now, when you're a solo musician on a cruise ship, you have to come with your repertoire already prepared because you're going to be playing for 3 or 4 hours every night. And generally speaking, you're not supposed to repeat songs during the same cruise, unless someone in the audience specifically requests one. So that means you need a pretty large catalogue of songs to choose from. Most cruise musicians recommend you have at least 200 to 300 songs. My repertoire, though, is slightly larger than that. It currently contains over 600 songs. Yeah, in hindsight, it might be a bit ambitious. Naturally, the next question is, how do you actually remember that many songs? And the answer is, you don't. Fortunately, cruise musicians are allowed to have a tablet on stage, so you can read chords and lyrics while you're performing. But personally, I try not to rely on it too heavily, so before each contract, I try and learn as many of the lyrics as possible. And the method that works best for me is simply listening to the same songs over and over again as I go about my day. When I'm out and about, when I'm doing my drawing, and when I'm resting. It's a very disciplined process. But of course, knowing the songs is only half the job. You also have to turn them into an actual show. When you're performing long sets like this, there's a fairly traditional approach to structuring the evening. You usually start with something a little bit more relaxed and laid back, while people are still arriving and settling in, and then gradually move into more upbeat party material as the night goes on and the audience grows a little more enthusiastic. Another really important thing to think about when you're playing multiple sets every night with no day off is vocal fatigue. The best way I found to deal with that is to lower the keys of certain songs. Oh God, no. Country roads, take me home. Or sometimes change the key entirely so it sits more comfortably with my voice. Luckily for us guitarists, changing key is made a lot easier with one of these bad boys. A capo. Ultimately though, the best way to prepare for a long contract like this is the 3 P's. Practice, practice, and practice. Of course, with long sets and the vocal fatigue that I mentioned earlier, looking after your voice becomes incredibly important. It's surprisingly easy to lose your voice during a long contract, so over time, I've developed a few techniques just to keep things in working order. Just the usual scales, and breathing exercises. Bring back my pig. Another technique that I was introduced to by a singer friend of mine recently is singing straws. She described it as being like doing burpees for your voice. Another key part of vocal care is simply singing regularly to build up stamina. For example, when I'm in the shower. Ice, ice, baby. Ice, ice, baby. And sometimes the best thing you can do is complete vocal rest, which means not speaking at all.
Hello? Joe? Are you there? Why aren't you saying anything? Why did you call me if you're not even going to say anything? Ugh.
And finally, because vocal care is so important, singers are usually advised to avoid very cold or very hot drinks before performing. One of the many perks of working a long contract, whether that's on cruise ships or in hotels in places like Cyprus, is the free all-you-can-eat food every day. Which is great, but it can also be exactly as dangerous as it sounds. Combine that with the fact that there's often very little time to properly exercise, and it's quite easy to pile on the pounds. So when I'm back home between contracts, I try to detox and get myself back into shape, which involves a very strict and very disciplined fitness routine. I also try and maintain a healthy, balanced diet, eating plenty of vegetables, and fruit. One of the questions I get asked the most as a cruise ship entertainer is, how much do you actually get paid? Now, that can be quite personal information, but I thought for this video, I'd finally reveal the answer. So, for this particular contract, I'll be earning a month. So, now you know. Living on a cruise ship is a very interesting experience, but it does come with quite a few unique challenges, particularly when it comes to the environment you're living in. So before each contract, I like to do a little bit of preparation, just to get used to life on board. For example, getting accustomed to the slight movement of the ship. It's a very subtle motion, but after a while you do start to notice it. And of course, there's also the crew cabins, which are efficiently sized. So it's also important to practice sleeping in very small spaces.
Attention passengers, we've now reached our destination.
Ow! Right, I suppose I better start packing. When it comes to packing for a long contract, it's very easy to overpack, and that is something that I'm extremely guilty of. And that becomes slightly more of an issue on cruise ships because they're not exactly known for their generous storage space, so you do have to pack carefully. Of course, you need your everyday clothes, your performance outfits, and things to wear when you get off the ship in port. But on my cruise line, MSC, there's also a number of themed nights where guests are encouraged to follow a certain dress code. A dark suit and bow tie for gala night. Colourful shirts for flower glory or 70s night. And a full white outfit for white night. Not that kind of white night. Although, that would probably be quite memorable. Aside from clothing, there's a few essential items that are really worth bringing with you on a long contract. First up, plug adapters. Because I live in the UK and MSC ships are built to a European standard, I need a UK to EU adapter to charge any of my devices, which I didn't realise on my first contract. So I arrived on the ship with a bag full of completely useless UK plugs. Also, an extension lead is very helpful because crew cabins usually have very few sockets. Next up, magnet hooks. Cruise ship cabin walls are actually magnetic, so these are incredibly useful for hanging clothes and bags or even sticking documents and photos to the wall, which also helps save a bit of space in the cabin. Another essential item, noise cancelling headphones. Ships can be surprisingly noisy, and you're usually sharing a cabin with someone, so these become very useful very quickly. And finally, the single most important item I bring on any contract, tea bags. Without my Yorkshire tea, I become a completely useless husk of a person. And there's absolutely no chance of me even leaving my bed, let alone performing 4 hours a night. And finally, as a musician and performer, I obviously need to bring my gear with me as well. Fortunately, as a solo guitar vocalist, my setup is actually fairly simple. Unlike some performers, I don't use backing tracks or loop pedals. It's literally just my voice and my acoustic guitar. But even with a simple setup, there's still quite a few bits of equipment that need to come along. So, here's everything I take on board with me. Guitar, guitar cable, tablet holder, SM58 microphone, guitar stand, spare strings, capo, page turning foot switch, and tuner. So, once everything's ready, the only thing left to do is pack it all up. Right, next problem, getting all this to the ship. Next episode, travel day, joining the MSC Virtuosa. Don't forget to
like and subscribe.
Sorry, I mean
Like and subscribe.
cheers me dears.